Hello, this is Stephen Nojidi and this is another Tada Genji tradition video. Earlier this month I put out a video announcing the book coming out and also that I would try to do 2 videos before the end of the month. And this video is that first video. So it is that monthly collaboration video for September 2023. And the topic of this month was or is Shinobi. Now, as many of the viewers know, I've talked about samurai spies ad nauseum. Shinobi have been discussed on this channel like many times. Disproportionate amount of discussion about Shinobi, to be honest. So honestly, the video would be a great disservice to simply rehash a bunch of old material. So, in 2023, there's more than enough researchers and publications in English and Japanese that covered this topic. There really should be no question as to what a shinobi is in terms of the basics at this point, in English or in Japanese. So, no point in going over the same old, same old. So, this video, since it's supposed to be about shinobi, is actually going to allow me the opportunity to introduce to the audience a shinobi teaching that does not actually come from a samurai military manual. Now, most people are under the impression that if a shinobi teaching would have to come from a samurai manual, because shinobi is it's a samurai art, right? Samurai spies. But it doesn't have to come from a military manual. So if you have a copy of the book Samurai Traditions of the Tada Genji, you can flip to page 102. Like I said, if you have the book, this is all on page 102. For those that don't have the book, that is fine. Just keep watching the video. So, the topic of this video is not going to be generically shinobi. It is shinobi found in Shinto teachings. So now this is going to be a very specific dive into the heart of Shotoku Jingunden. So hopefully you find it interesting. So, those that have watched my previous videos are already primed for this. If you haven't watched any of the videos about the truth of Shinto or Mononobe Ryu Shinto, it contains some required preliminary information. Or if you have the book, you should probably read pages 24 to 32. There's a very big discussion about what Shinto actually is, and I've put it in video and it's also in the book. In red on the screen, the summary is that Shinto is not an independent, self-characterized religion until the 1700s. Prior to that, it is an amorphous amalgamation of Taoist and animistic rituals collected under the banner of Buddhism. In other words, there isn't a religion of Shinto until the 1700s. And all of the ideas that Shinto and Buddhism are 2 different religions running parallel, that's all essentially a retcon from recent history. It's a very complicated topic, so I'm not going to go over that again in this video. Either watch my videos, read that part of the book, look up Toshio Kuroda's works on this topic, etc., etc. But it will help you understand the entire foundation much easier. Okay, now, having said all that, let's move forward. With that preliminary knowledge in your mind, let's move forward. There is a document called the Tai-Seikyo, which is part of the Mononobe Ryu Shinto, which is also Tai-Shiryu, which is the Shotoku Jingunden tradition. Okay, so and that's why we're talking about it. It's Shotoku Jingunden. So, it's based off of the Kujiki. And again, I've done videos about the Kujiki. We won't retrace that ground here. So, it's a very specific document it's a companion. It's a commentary to the Kujiki, but it's more of a companion to the Kujiki. Anyway, it belongs to the Izawa-no-Miya shrine in Mie Prefecture. Now, the full version is 72 volumes, The first 38 volumes are history. So, of gods, of emperors, of the Mononobe clan, of other clans, of court officials, etc., etc., etc. So, there's just a lot of history. But what we're looking at is the remaining 34 chapters have various other teachings, such as medicine, astrology, ritual, government, etc., etc., etc. But within, it's in volume 60 something, I don't remember off the top of my head, there is a section on Shinobi. But before we get into that, let's do some background information because you need to know this. This is important. The Iwazanomiya shrine came into conflict with the government in the 1650s because their teachings claim that the Iwazanomiya shrine should actually be the main shrine of the sun goddess, of Amaterasu Okami, and that the Ise shrine, the inner and outer Ise shrines, are actually more related to the sun and moon gods. All right. So it's now that's a very simplified form of the argument. The actual argument is incredibly complicated, but it basically boils down to the fact that the Iwazanomiya shrine has this claim, and it's based from the teachings of the shrine, such as the Taiseikyo. And in those teachings, there's a slightly different version of history. And these differences, they're very slight, and they only make up an incredibly small percentage of the entire text. But while the portion of the text that these claims make up is tiny, the implication is huge. And also, the Iwazanomiya shrine didn't necessarily even demand or want full control over the Ise shrine, or them to actually move all the Amaterasu stuff at the shrine, over to their shrine. Basically, like take over the shrine and everything transfers over to Iwazanomiya. Basically all they were really asking for was some rights to the inner and outer shrine of Ise, and some recognition that their shrine was actually connected to the sun god, etc., etc. So it's a complicated argument. It's only a minor portion of the teaching, and they weren't even really seeking for a massive, full sort of revolution within the shrine system. They just wanted they have a teaching. It says that their shrine's supposed to be the sun goddess shrine. They just wanted some kind of mitigation of this teaching. The government wasn't having any of it, though. To be blunt, they saw it as the Iwazanomiya shrine versus the Ise shrine, and the government was not having any of it. They sided with the Ise shrine. Iwazanomiya was banned from teaching this anymore or spreading any of this teachings, etc., etc., etc. The government just said, no, that teaching is not allowed to exist. Stop. The shrine, however, did not stop. They continued to spread this teaching. It was not removed, it was not edited out. And in the late 1600s, like 78, 79, copies of the Taiseikyo begin, with all the banned material, begin to make their way into the general public. What was interesting is it wasn't like a lot of copies, it was just a few. Like it was a very, very small amount. But it was found out that a small amount of these copies had somehow made their way into the general public. There's actually a specific event where there's a specific bookstore that had acquired a copy, and the government somehow found out that there was a copy of the Taiseikyo in this bookstore that was available for the public. Anyway, again, it's kind of a long story, but the government was furious. And so at this point, rather than just the one section about this sun goddess shrine issue, the entire teaching of Taiseikyo is banned, and the wood blocks are destroyed. The book is labeled, the entire book is labeled Gisho. Now, let me remind the viewer, the reason the book was labeled Gisho wasn't because of the entire book. It was just because of this one political issue. So does that make sense? I want to make sure that you catch that. They banned the entire book. They labeled the entire book Gisho only because of this one section. Not because of anything else, but just because of this one section. And like I said, the woodblocks were destroyed, and those who were involved were severely punished. And I'll let the viewer imagine what I mean by that. However, copies managed to survive, and many samurai scholars continued to study their copies and pass the documents on in secret. This was, again, this was a shrine document, but samurai did study it. So there was one scholar, and funny enough, he's actually called Yoda Sensei. Literally, he's Master Yoda. Yoda was his family name. And Master Yoda, I feel silly saying that. Master Yoda, or Yoda Sensei, was a samurai scholar of the Taiseikyo. And it's actually his copy that now rests in the Osaka Tenmangu Shrine archive. So this means the Taiseikyo is part of Mononobe-ru Shinto, which means it's part of the Shotoku Jinganden, which thus means it's related to the Tada Genji Jinganden and Kusunoki-ryu. And let me again stress this point. It's not a samurai manual. It is studied by samurai, but it is a Shinto, and of course I use the word Shinto here loosely, Shinto in quotes, a quote-unquote Shinto manual, written by and transmitted by and maintained by the shrine, not a samurai military family or military sort of teaching. It's not a gungaku school. It's not a samurai clan. It's a shrine. Again, produced by a shrine, maintained by a shrine, transmitted by a shrine. It's a shrine document, not a military war manual. Of course, like I said, of course it was studied by samurai, and of course when the book is banned and the woodblocks are burned, it then falls under the protection of the samurai students. So then it is transmitted and maintained by the samurai students, because at that point the shrine can't, the shrine's done. It's done. It's the days are over for the shrine to be transmitting this. But the samurai students then take on the responsibility of maintaining and transmitting the document. Now let me be clear. The Taiseikyo does have some very different and interesting versions of history. It has some very interesting claims, and in some places it sounds a little far out there. I'll be the first one to admit it. Some of the stuff in there is, whoa, I mean, it's cool, but it's different. It has some interesting claims, like some of the physical descriptions of certain people, in the past, etc. There's some interesting stuff, but the point is that none of that actually changes the fact that it's a Shinto holy text of practitioners of Mononobe-ru Shinto. And so it is Mononobe-ru Shinto that has this Shinobi teaching. So even though some parts of the Taiseikyo are a little weird, and even though it was banned and labeled Gisho because of a political reason, again I stress, because of a single political reason, this is still Mononobe-ru Shinto. This is still a Shinobi teaching from Mononobe-ru Shinto. So anyway, the Shinobi section is found in, like I said, in the later volumes, and there's also a section regarding conspiracies and strategies. But that's for another video. So now let's finally let's get around to what it says about Shinobi. Okay, so for those who have the book, this info is on page 105. So what the Taiseikyo says about Shinobi, well, it starts with a quote from Sun Tzu saying that military knowledge cannot be trusted from spirits. It has to be collected by human beings. Now, in italics on your screen, we need to unpack that slightly, because does this quote come from the time of the imperial army? So remember, the imperial pre-samurai, pre-900 AD, the imperial army uh, was the military force, right? And during that time, we know this is when the Sun Tzu came into the country, and the Sun Tzu was used as part of the training regiment for the imperial army. So does this quote come from then, or simply put, does it come from a later date? Because honestly, we know the Sun Tzu's in the country by, I think, 700 something, so quote could literally come from any point. But we do make the assumption, though, that the Taiseikyo was actually compiled somewhere. By actually compiled, like all of the different histories and rituals and beliefs and teachings are actually written down and compiled into a single collection somewhere, probably between 1400 and 1600s. But it is hard to tell. So if we want to take a conservative stance, in other words, the most recent date. So when you're doing conservative stance in history, conservative means more recent. So the most conservative stance puts the Taiseikyo's compilation somewhere between the 1500s and pre-1650, because we know for a fact that it's in the 1650s that they first get, the government warns them to not to not speak of this alternate sun goddess initial shrine teaching. So somewhere before 1650s, conservatively 1500s, pre-1650, somewhere in that point is when we would say it's probably penned. And of course, at that point, easily the Sun Tzu quote could exist in the country. So the timing, it's hard to put the actual timing of the compilation of the actual sort of this being written down. Like I said, let's just say somewhere between 1500 and 1650. Now here, so all of this, now what does it actually say? It says that there are two types of shinobi. There's large unit shinobi and small unit shinobi. And then it lists four types of shinobi. And there's basically a paragraph or so for each entry. The four types of shinobi are actually four functions of shinobi. And it says that these are the four. Contracting enemy assets, which is basically setting up turncoats, getting insiders, basically going into the enemy territory and doing things to get enemy officers and enemy local people on your side. The second one is spreading propaganda and rumors. Pretty straightforward, right? The third one is sowing chaos. This is when shinobi are used to conduct raids, to set fires, to let horses free, to open entrances. Basically, you use them to just, you can use them for ambushes, things like that. You use shinobi to just sow chaos. And then the last one is infiltration into enemy locations. And this one basically means this is more of what people think of with shinobi, because it contains sneaking into places to steal documents, sneaking into places to steal military provisions, which would be like sneaking in at night with like dark clothes, the stereotypical ninja stuff. That everybody thinks of. What most of the viewers know is inen, or the yin techniques of the ninja, which is, under the cover of night, sneaking in and stealing stuff, like stealing provisions, stealing secret documents, stealing enemy plans, stealing enemy treasure, etc., etc., etc. Or it means sneaking in, pretending to be someone who's supposed to be there, learning information, etc., etc., etc. So these are the four functions of shinobi according to the Taiseikyo. The text then goes on to recount the story of Shi Netsuhiko, which hopefully the viewers remember is that fisherman god who became Emperor Jimmu's spy. And it says that he's the first shinobi. He serves Emperor Jimmu. So this is Emperor Jimmu shinobi, and this effectively makes him the first shinobi of the tradition, makes him the sort of the shinobi god, if you will. It then goes on to list other shinobi that served other emperors since then, such as it talks about Emperor Ojin's shinobi, Emperor Nintoku's shinobi, etc., etc., etc. For those who have the book, you can read page 99 and 100 to get more about Shi Netsuko Hiko's story. And it is Shi Netsuhiko. That I misspelled it when I in the I say Shi Netsuko. It's not Netsuko. It's like at the top of the screen where Shi Netsuhiko. Sorry. So the italic version is just a misspelling. So anyway, page 99 and page 100 is where you can find his story from the Jimu no Maki. But the Taiseikyo specifically mentions him and says that he's the first shinobi. He's Emperor Jimmu shinobi. He's the first shinobi of the Jingunden. He's the god of the shinobi, etc., etc., etc. He's the first shinobi. So the section is small and is So this now the shinobi section is small, but it absolutely is talking about spies. And even when you're sowing chaos, and even when you're sneaking in at night to steal stuff, you're doing it as part of a larger conspiracy. So it's like, oh, if we set a fire to this, it'll force the enemy to have to do this, and then we can do this. You'll also see this in Kusunokiru and Tada Genji traditions when they talk about these multi-stepped conspiracies, and sometimes they require you to, like, burn this down or steal this. You're basically setting the conditions for the conspiracy, for the plot. So it's not like the shinobi don't go in and just destroy stuff for the sake of destroying it. I mean, that's useful, but really they're destroying it as part of a larger battle plan, as part of a larger conspiracy. So this entire thing is about espionage, is about spies. And the Taiseikyo uses only the single kanji for shinobi. It just uses the blade over heart kanji for shinobi. It does not say shinobi no mono, ninja, or shinobi no suomono, nothing like that. It's just a single kanji shinobi. Now, this also mirrors the usage of the single kanji shinobi that we find, for example, in the Taiheki, but more specifically within the Kusunokiru documents, such as the teaching of the six shinobi, which only uses the single kanji shinobi. So, for example, Dako shinobi. It's not Dako shinobi no mono or Dako shinobi no suomono. It's just Dako shinobi, Shicho shinobi, Inko shinobi, right? So, single kanji shinobi referring to espionage agents. Again, like I said in previous stuff, this is how it is in Kusunokiru, this is how it is in a lot of the Jingunden, and in the Taiseikyo, it is also single kanji shinobi. And there you have it. That's it. A shinobi teaching found from a shrine religious text, not a samurai war manual. But it's still part of the Jingunden.